If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
The tilted kilt and white marks. Give it up again for the coach, Brian Billick.
Where else can you do radio and have an Irish coffee at the same time?
Really Irish coffee.
It is.
Not bad.
It's good. It's good. Very, very.
I'm going to start.
Great job.
Thank you. Right. I just said
Live radio.
I just said you did a great job. Trent Dilfer. Brian goes, yeah, you're right, I did.
Well, Coach, we're going to get back into some more draft talk, but I want to ask your opinion, your thoughts on this, because you've done it. You've been in that room at the facility a week from the draft. At this point in time, where is the team at with the process? How close is the draft board being to finished? I mean, we know it's always fluid, but how close are they to being, quote-unquote, ready for Thursday night?
Well, if they stay true to their history, they've been through what they would call their readings, their last second go-around with the check and recheck of the entire board. Right. They'll have gone through their initial ranking of the board, then they'll say, okay, one more time through, you go check through these 3-4 players. And you cross-check that, Luke, with and you cross-check certain players with coaches or scouts that may or may not have spent as much time on. Just Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta wanting to hear one more go-round, one more maybe discussion on a handful of players. And they'll now, between now and the weekend, probably begin to solidify their board in terms of how we rank this thing out. And it will be a conversation of, they may sit with a coach and a scout and say, okay, rank these three. Players A, B, and C. All right, now rank players A, B, and D. Now do C, D, and E. Right. And you cross-check to see, well, if you like A better than B, and B better than C, but you like C better than D, and D better than A, ooh, we got to start over here. Right. You know, it really is. Right. It's that back and forth. Ozzie reached a point, maybe a little early, maybe by tomorrow, clearly by Monday. Because my MO with Ozzie was to, I'd see how the board's coming together, I'd hear all the critiques, and then I'd sit with Ozzie and go, tell me more about this guy. Tell me why this guy's here. Just prodding a little more conversation. I could always tell when I reached that point that, okay, no more questions.
Yeah, right.
Because he's kind of got it set in his mind. Right. He's got a feel for the board the way he wants it. Now I'm just being a pest and let the board stand. And then a couple days, probably on Tuesday, they'll bring Steve Bisciotti in, go over the board with him, go over a couple names that have come off the board. This is why this guy is no longer on the board, for these reasons. So when you hear there's an interest in this guy, oh, he's falling to the late teens or the late 20s, he's falling into the third round, this would be a good value because they want Steve to know, not then, but now, this is why we're not looking at this guy. And there'll be a handful of those guys. And then your board is set. Then really the early part of next week, lead up to the draft, actually spent more time here on the phones, setting the stage, calling all the other guys in the league. If you're interested, we might be interested in moving back, might be interested in moving up. Are players available? What's your interest? Who are your trading partners? Kind of getting that set.
How much honesty is there?
None.
When you
absolutely right, none whatsoever.
How much is there though between when you were coaching and the college coach or the college coordinator, and in terms when I was in the soccer business drafting players, I would always call their coach and say, don't feed me to the line here. Tell me about this kid. And I was hoping that they wanted to get in my good graces by being honest with me. How much of that goes on in the NFL where they call the coach in all the time at Nebraska and say, tell me about this kid honestly, because I've done all my work and here's where I think I have him. Am I right?
That's where you've drawn your relationship. The scouts will think they have a relationship, and sometimes yes, sometimes no, and feel like they have the insight on the guy. Then typically Ozzie might say, Coach, is there someone on your staff, do you know this head coach, this coordinator? And if you do, if you've got a working relationship, a guy you can trust, it'll say, look, here's the skinny on this guy.
They want their kid to get picked. Because it's good for them if their kid gets picked.
But depending upon the relationship you have, you're not going to sell a kid or a coach that you have a legitimate relationship on a bill of goods.
Right.
Now, if I don't have that relationship, yeah, there's professional courtesy, and I could call a guy. I'm doing the draft. A couple days, David Shaw, head coach at Stanford Cardinal, who was on my staff at Baltimore. I coached David at Stanford, and Les Miles. Now, I've met Les Miles. I don't know Les Miles real well, but professionally I know Les Miles. If there's a kid at Stanford, yeah, I can call David.
He's giving you the lowdown.
And I will trust David's evaluation, and David's not going to lie to me. I can call Les Miles, and he will be professional, but you got to read between the lines. Yeah, this is a great kid. Yeah, he works real hard. There's certain code things there that'll tell you it's not necessarily a ring endorsement, but there's not too many coaches that you don't know they're going to say, just kill the kid, unless there's some other agenda there.
Coach, Ed Reed has made some comments recently talking about a contract, talking about his feeling that he's been disrespected. And you've been following it the last few years. You dealt with it in the early part of his career. I mean, Ed, this has become an almost annual thing with Ed, but your overall thoughts on how the Ravens should handle the safety position, both Ed Reed and Bernard Pollard, their starting safeties are set, but they're both only signed for this year. They lost to Defacing and Billick Nakamura. First, your thoughts on the Ed Reed situation and how the Ravens should approach that entering the final year of his deal.
Well, we already have the prototype for it, because as uncomfortable as it is, we saw with Ray Lewis that at some point they needed to let Ray go to the market and see what everybody thought the value was. Right. There's always perceived value and then real value in terms of, it's like your house. You may think of it as being valued a certain way, but unless you've got a buyer at that amount, it's only worth what someone else will pay for it. Ed may very well be in that same category. Is there a question, a dynamic player, and you want on your team. But as we said in the earlier segment, you can't pay for past performance. Right. You've got to pay for future. And Ed has to recognize that that is a certain value. Now, does he deserve a new contract? Yeah, probably. Is it the value that Ed thinks it should be? Not likely, and they'll have to sort that out.
Brian, when you look at it, and I'm not using Ed specifically, but we'll take Nakamura and Zibikowski, because they were around when you were, they were in when you were in, and you're at the position where you are now kind of analyzing it. How do kids like that go from playing at high-level schools like at Cincinnati and Notre Dame and aren't necessarily able to make the transition to being a starter? Is there one thing that either one of those guys didn't have that they couldn't cultivate, they couldn't grow because neither one of them ever really became a starter, and yet they've carved a nice little career out for themselves?
Yeah, so much of the NFL now is role playing, and really even in the drafting, I think draft philosophies have changed. People are drafting to specific roles, which means the value of the board may be different. I think the New England Patriots are a classic team that are comfortable falling back, and taking those specific role players. At the end of the day, it still comes down to talent. And at the end of the day, a guy like Zibikowski, good, tough, smart kid. But when you're talking about the elite level of athleticism that you see in the National Football League, at some point that athleticism, good, smart, tough, hard-working kids, there's still a cap.
Is it speed? Is that, when you say athleticism, is it as simple as that? Just not fast enough?
Yeah, just the range, the speed, the transition, getting in the right situation, doing the right thing, and working in conjunction with Ed Reed and the obligations that puts on you. Where a guy might go into different, not that it's a better system, don't get me wrong, or they certainly not that he's better coach, because you're not going to get better coaching than what they do defensively with the Ravens. But what you're asking of him to do better fits that skill set, because clearly he's going to be a supplement to Ed Reed. Just like your other linebackers have to be a supplement to Ray Lewis. If you see a Bart Scott then leave and go into another capacity, he may very well blossom that capacity. Not that he didn't do what he was supposed to with the Ravens, but he's asked to do different things with a different team.
Now, Coach, looking at the state.
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.